Hello everyone, my name is Jeff Rolka. Thank you for joining me for Questions from Comments 38. I have a load of really great questions and I am excited to get into them. So, thank you if you've chosen to subscribe. If you haven't yet, I hope that you'll do so now. There are many other ways that you can help out, not subscribe, but help out the channel. Those are in the description. They do include Patreon, where you can get MP3s or the PDF guides that I use for my warm-up videos. Let's get into our questions. Hi Jeff, I have a question. Sometimes my voice sounds kind of crackly when I sing higher. Is this a result of poor vocal cord closure? Yes, basically. There's an imbalance of some kind that's happening. Generally speaking, this is an imbalance between subglottic air pressure, what is commonly referred to as support, and the level of adduction, the amount of musculature that you're using to adduct or close the vocal folds. When there's an imbalance between those two, then you get cracks and breaks and different things like that that just sort of tend to happen. These are not always a bad thing. They can sometimes tell you that you are doing things differently. And if it's your intention to do things differently, then those cracks and breaks let you know that you're actually changing your technique. If they are unwanted, then evaluate how you are adducting the vocal fold. This comes in the form of vowel alignment practice or the vocalization exercises that I have on my YouTube channel. I call them warm-up videos, but they're vocalizations. They're ways to assess your vowels and how your vowels are aligning, and also assess how you are practicing your apagio breath management. So your airflow, how you are engaging with your voice. When those two things are working together, in other words, the way that you are aligning the vowels and the support or subglottic air pressure, when they're working together, then the cracks, for the most part, will cease. Short vowel exercises, such as you will find, sort of check our ego at the door here for a second, such as you will find in the beginner playlist, short vowel exercises are excellent tools to do this evaluation. So things like we, you. Those are the exercises that can be very, very helpful for doing that kind of evaluation and getting it so those cracks don't happen for you when you don't want them, right? Number 2, should we practice your vowel alignment vocal exercises with mask resonance across our whole range or higher chest range? Is this same for the mixed register? By mixed register, I'm interpreting that as zona de passaggio. I've been practicing the NG sound, but don't apply the feeling, singing the mask, doing vowels. I have to admit, I'm a little bit confused by this question kind of in general. Let's just talk about best practices for the NG exercise, which is an exercise in resonance and in discovering the singer's formant. It is particularly helpful in the mix range of the voice. So, for example, talking about the mix range and meaning the zona de passaggio, for most tenors, that's going to happen somewhere in this zone between C4 and F4. You know, might be a semitone or two higher, not probably going to be much lower than that. That's when we start getting into the baritone mix range or zona de passaggio. And the NG sound is particularly helpful at working with vocal fold adduction and allowing for singer's formant or mask resonance. So when you practice it, you want to keep that brilliant sound happening throughout the duration of the exercise. Now, the individual is asking about whether or not you should practice that throughout the various range of your voice, like throughout the sort of totality of your tessitura. And I would say if your repertoire is requiring you to do that, like if you're singing in musical theater, then a lot of that formant can be very, very helpful in making sure that you cut through. That's where our projection is. So that could be very, very useful if you're singing theater, or if you are in a lot of the popular styles, kind of full stop. It could be quite useful when using a microphone. If you've got a very loud band that you're singing over the top of, having that singer's formant can be particularly helpful, and having a little extra can be very helpful too. In the classical genres, the formant is important, but you might not necessarily have as much of it blended as some of the popular styles. That is up for debate, however. Contemporary thought on this is changing, so maybe talk with your teacher, talk with your director. Choir is a whole other matter. If you're asking about this in the context of choir, it is a completely different thing, and it's going to vary quite widely from choir director, and also to the repertoire that you are singing in any given season. So you kind of want to maybe have it as part of your technical toolkit, but not necessarily walk into every rehearsal kind of looking at that resonance there. Number 3, I have a question. My vocal break seems to be around F4, and then I flip up, but I can't seem to be able to tell if the sound I'm making is head voice or falsetto, but it is certainly not a light, airy sound. That's good to kind of get started with, so nice job there. I guess what I am asking is, do you have any tips on how to differentiate the two, and how can I get more volume out of it? Thanks for this video. You're very welcome in terms of the video. So first question, how can I make a differentiation between the two? Recording yourself might be useful, or meeting with a teacher, if only infrequently, to get some feedback on whether or not you are in fact making the transition effectively. That being said, the way that you are describing this experience is very normal for someone who is discovering this middle ground where it's not belting and it's also not a falsetto tone production where the vocal folds are separating and you're getting that airier sound. That hollow you, which is neither you nor you, where you're kind of pushing on it. It's that middle ground. You. The vocal folds are elongated, and yet they are still adducted. That's the key. We want elongation, and we want adduction or closure. So record yourself. Listen to it. See if it sounds like the noises that I just made. You. If it sounds like that, you're probably doing it correctly. Notice the physical experience of it. If it feels squeezed or pressed, if you're getting a lot of tension around the vocal fold, might want to try something different, might want to reevaluate how you're approaching it. Recording, maybe getting some outside help, paying attention to the physical experience. The volume will come with practice. That's never a popular thing to say, but the reality is that as you continue to work with that and you cultivate ever increasing amounts of release around the vocal fold, then you will be able to apply more airflow and still maintain this elongated and adducted coordination of the vocal fold. As you continue to cultivate more and more release, the soft tissues will resonate sympathetically with the fundamental, the pitch that you're creating at the vocal fold, and you will get an ever-increasing amount of volume. If you find that that is not occurring, and this is a longer-term goal here, this is not necessarily something that's going to occur in the week or 2 weeks of the establishment of this technique. It's going to take some time and take some practice. As you continue to practice with it, the soft tissues will resonate more sympathetically. You'll apply a little bit more subglottic air pressure, a little bit more airflow, and you'll get that nice, big, resonant sound. Keep at it. Carefully evaluate how you are doing it. Again, record, maybe get some outside help. Pay attention to the physical experience. keep at it. It's really, really good. From the sounds of things, again, it sounds like you might be on the right path, but record, maybe get some outside help, evaluate the physical experience. Number 4, I love music lessons that include funny instructions, the face you make when you've got a piece of food that's too hot. One question, how do I do that without making my eyes water when I sing? I dialed back the expression, but it didn't really help. Thanks for any additional instruction in this regard. I agree with Rhonda Lyon in saying your teaching style is wonderful for those of us who know and love music. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your kind words. I do try to do my best in helping convey this information so that you can get the most wonderful usage out of your voice. So first of all, I can't say that I've ever come across someone whose eyes have begun to water when making a sort of facial expression like that. But here's the thing. Those external expressions, we use them to get you to change internal shapes. Now here's the thing. I don't know if it's the internal shape that's causing your eyes to water or if it's the external shape. You're going to have to experiment. And quite frankly, you're going to have to experiment with probably a few different things to find out how you can create that internal shape and then let go of the external face. Because I don't know that you necessarily want to sing your exercises with that kind of facial expression. Even if you did, you probably wouldn't want to sing like that the whole time. You might want to do that for a line or two, if you're in theater perhaps, or something to that effect. But then you want to move on and be able to change the expression you have on your face. So here's what I would suggest you start experimenting with. You might use a mirror, you might not have to. I don't know that it really matters because it's the internal shapes that we're interested in. So use the expression, you've talked about the face with like a piece of food that's too hot. This is usually used to get people to lower their larynx. So do that, deal with the eye watering a little bit, but then see if you can keep the internal shape and have a neutral expression on your face. You could also try this with the inner smile, that big toothy grin. That's usually used to help people lift their soft palates. So adopt the external facial expression and then see if you can let go of that external facial expression but keep the lifted soft palate. That would be my advice, and hopefully what you'll learn to do here is to, with a bit of practice, get the internal shape without having to use the external facial expression. And then, with any luck, your eye watering is not linked to the internal shape, and then you'll be all good to go, right? Because you'll be able to have the benefits of that internal shape, and without using the external facial expression, your eyes won't water. You can get on with singing your songs. Number 5. I am so sorry to bother you. I found this online about the tenor range by some standards. So first of all, I love questions. This is no bother at all. Please, leave as many questions as you like. I'm here to help. That's what I'm doing. So this is not a bother. Quite the opposite. I appreciate your questions. I look forward to more of them. Thank you. Tenor, B2, F4 or C3, B4. I sing B2, A4, and I can hit B4 and C5. My voice reminds me of the range Ed Sheeran sings in. I've noticed that my voice blossoms as I get higher in my range. It doesn't sound deep, but kind of brassy, bright, and a high tone. Please help. What vocal type do you think I may be? I would greatly appreciate your help. And I'm going to leave that last section for another moment. In a word, it would be irresponsible of me to weigh in on what FOC, what vocal range designation you might be, because I've never heard you sing. I have no idea how well or poorly your vowels are aligned. I have no idea what your voice registration event practice is like, or if you even have one. And knowing your FOC with any certitude before those two very fundamental things have happened is premature in the extreme. Without good vowel alignment, we will not get consistent response in the zona de passaggio, where we're making this transition towards our upper register. We will not get consistent response at the secondo passaggio, the so-called break. We work really hard to define where that most even point of transition is for the secondo passaggio. For most vocalists, it's much lower than what they expect. Sometimes it's a little higher than they expect. It goes both ways. The point is, we have to define it to understand what sort of zone we're in for a vocal range designation. So by listing all of these different pitch areas and the highest note that you can hit, and I don't know with what quality you are, quote unquote, hitting the note. If you're just squeaking it out, well, that's not usually how we judge vocal range. It's about the most amount of the range that consistently phonates, that we can make to sound consistent across all these various registers of our voice. So I cannot say you'd be served just as well by going onto Wikipedia, searching for FACH, F-A-C-H, and reading through the various designations. Because until I hear you and have had a chance to kind of work through the vowels, work through transitions, see where you're even at with them, it's premature, to say the least. It takes patience, but if I may, I would suggest that you avoid thinking about your voice as any one of these various FOCs until you've had time to do these practices, because you can kind of force it into a certain area. And if you do that, you are unlikely to get the most even balanced response from your voice. So you won't get all the full luscious resonance and ease of transition and beautiful intonation that would come easier if you approach your practice as a process of refining the usage of your instrument, your voice, rather than trying to be a tenor or a baritone or a mezzo or something to that effect. Come at it as a process, as a practice, and your FOC will reveal itself over time. And your last little section, I think, kind of gives me the impression that you maybe have a sense of this already, because you ask, does it really matter? It's always nice to have information. I think information is helpful. It can help us to understand how we're doing things, how we're using our voice. But unless you're singing opera, all of these FOCs, they may not really matter all that much at all. What's more important is to understand how your voice operates. And in so doing, in arriving at that through a practice, then you don't really need to know what the sort of operatic vocal range designation is, which is what all these are. We talk about lyric baritones and, you know, tenor robustos or spinto tenors, and it goes on and on and on. There's loads of different subsets of each of the FOCs. We talk about them. We're really talking about opera designations, and these designations were done to help directors find vocalists and vocalists find parts. So they were all meant to work together. But most popular musicians don't pursue the technical aspects of singing far enough to really go full in and say that's what my vocal range designation is. Most of us stop short of that because we don't want to sound like opera singers. That's the end goal of a lot of the technique that's done for singing. Now, on my channel, I make the warm-ups, which are vocalizations, they're vocal practices, so that they're pretty universally applicable. They are talking about vowel alignment, they are working towards vowel alignment so that you get an even response of your voice. If you kept on going and going and going with them, they would ultimately lead you more into classical technique. But if you keep the shape, if you will, of the vowels in the more popular genres, then they serve us very well as popular music singers by facilitating registration event practice, facilitating good intonation and overall good phrasing and vocal health in general. So does it matter? Can't really say no, can't really say yes. It's unlikely that unless you're going to be an opera singer, you're going to pursue your technique that far, but along the way, you'll certainly get an idea of what your voc is, and then you can kind of decide how further you want to go, or if you're happy singing popular music, then you can use the exercises to bring your absolute best foot forward and have the most flexibility with your voice. Quite frankly, the most ease of working in the studio too, because while you can tune things and fix things to no end in recording studios, it's much easier and nicer when you're really, really close to begin with. I would love your opinion on straw singing warm-ups and cool-downs. Are they beneficial scientifically? I can't speak as a scientist because I'm not a scientist. I'm a musician, vocalist, multi-instrumentalist. What I will say about straw phonation is that it is a semi-occluded vocalization, so it's partially restricting the flow of air. That has the effect of allowing the vocal folds to change shape more easily. This can be very helpful, particularly when doing registration event practice, because it takes some of the weight off the vocal folds and allows it to change configuration a little bit more easily. Straw phonation can serve as a nice middle ground between a lip trill practice and a solid vowel practice, because the solid vowel practice doesn't have any of the benefits of the semi-occlusion, and the lip trill is kind of heavy-handed in its occlusion. And the straw, to me, feels like it's somewhere in the middle. That might not necessarily be the same for you. You might find that straw phonation is kind of providing more of an occlusion than the lip trill, and so you might use them in reverse. I think that all of these tools have a useful role in our study of singing, but when it comes to semi-occluded exercises, the lip trill, straw phonation, that occlusion means that the vocal mechanism is working slightly differently than when the occlusion is removed. And so there's a bit of translation that has to occur. I think it's very important that if you're going to do semi-occluded phonations, you do them enough to get the benefits, but make sure that you are also doing a healthy amount of regular vocalizations, i.e. those without occlusions, so that you're making the transition to, you might think about it as having like training wheels on a bicycle. At some point you got to take the training wheels off. In singing, we can kind of take them off in little stages. So you do your semi-occluded exercises, do your solid vowel vocalizations, or do your dynamic air pressure vocalizations where there's short vowel syllables like I demonstrated earlier. We. They can be a nice way to ease through the transition into melismatic vocalizations. A melismatic vocalization being one where the vowels are continuous. Something to that effect. Number 7. Jeff, what differentiates a full, solid voice that sounds lovely to a voice that hits the note but sounds less pleasant? And what exercises to reach the former? Thank you. To be fair, a little bit of taste, because different voices sound different to different people. What sounds full and lovely to you may not necessarily sound full and lovely to someone else. And that voice that hits the note but doesn't sound pleasant to you may be very pleasant to someone else. So there is a bit of subjectivity here. However, in general, I would say that when we are using either too much vocal fold engagement or we're using too much air, we do not get the full resonance from our voice. And because the voice isn't resonating fully, it's not going to be as full sounding. It will sound thinner. It could sound strained. It could be a little bit on the airy side. There's any number of ways to do it where it doesn't sound as pleasant as it could. But there's a fairly narrow window where the vocal folds are balanced for us. Interesting. I didn't think that the theme was going to be vocal balance in Questions from Commons 38, but it's really kind of turning out that way. Because in order to find that balanced configuration of the vocal fold, we begin with short vowel exercises, and then we transition them into melismatic singing, trying to keep the physical experience the same. So you might begin with we, 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 where the feeling and the sound that I have in the first exercise, where I have short notes, staccato pitches, dynamic air pressure exercise, I want to maintain that tone quality. I want to maintain that sound as I get into the sustained exercise. This is important. The sustained exercise is one that is most like singing a song. Vowels phonate. So when we're singing a song, we're making a connection from vowel to vowel to vowel, singing through the consonants. That's what makes us sound melodious. That practice, too, can impact whether or not someone sounds pleasant, by the way, because that's a whole other thing. At any rate, start with those dynamic air pressure exercises, move into one vowel when you can do that effectively, start to put other vowels in there. We, we. And we want consistent quality, right? We. Moving through the 5 cardinal vowels, and then ultimately, when you're working on a song, take the vowels from the song and work on those maybe in an exercise like I've shown you here, or maybe sing the melody of your song without the consonants and listen to your vowel alignment. If they're all lining up really nicely, then you might be good to go. If they're not lining up very nicely, then look at the individual vowel sounds, put them into an exercise, work on your vowel alignment, go back to your song's melody, and that's how we can make that transition from a vocalization to vowel alignment in the songs. Number 8, I have a wide range. It goes from D3 to A5, and my strength and performance has always been the seamless transition between chest and blended voice to head voice. I got COVID. It was severe as expected, but I'm through it. So first of all, I'm very glad that you're through it, and hopefully that you are recovering. I assume that you're recovering really, really well. You haven't said that you're not. So I hope that your recovery is ultimately complete and full and as expedient as possible. For lack of a better term, feels different. I have my belt, I have my top again, but the blended voice feels like I'm driving stick shift through it. It doesn't sound the way I like, and it certainly doesn't feel the way it did. What should I do next? I have a concert scheduled for November, and I want to do my best for them. There's a quality to my sound that is slightly different as well, but I'm okay with accepting it as the new normal. It's possible that it's age creeping in. I don't know. As long as I can make a good sound and be in tune, I'm happy. Well, from the bottom to the top, I think that your priorities are in a good place. Have a good sound, sing in tune. You may find that it just takes longer than what you might like to recover. So I never like to be the bearer of bad news. But the last time that I had a cold, and this was not COVID, so COVID may be an entirely different thing. And I don't know all the specifics of what you had to deal with. It sounds like it was very severe, and I'm sorry for that. But the last time I had a sufficiently severe cold where I lost vocal function, I didn't feel right again for about 6 months. Most people who heard me sing didn't notice anything at all. No one on the YouTube channel said anything at all about it. And I was making and releasing videos and singing across my secondo passaggio the whole time that I was recovering. So there is a differentiation between an external feel and an internal feel. You may very well feel different. It may very well sound different to you. This could be objectively the external sound of your voice. If you haven't recorded yourself and listened to it yet, that would be something to do, because it may only be your internal experience of it. This could be because of something that happened with your inner ear, your ear canals, while you were suffering with COVID. It could be that the recovery, the full recovery, is going to take some time, especially if you were coughing, if you lost your voice. It can take time. I'm sorry to have to say. Like I said, last time I lost vocal function, it was 6 months before I felt really normal again. I hope it doesn't take that long for you. Be patient. Be kind to your voice. Stick to comfortable areas. Pay attention to your body fatigue as well. If you find yourself feeling tired, come out of the registration event or the upper register areas of your voice, and if you still want to phonate and practice a bit more, stick to the comfortable areas where it takes just a very baseline amount of energy to phonate effectively. The last thing you want to do is prolong your recovery by practicing with insufficient energy. That breeds additional vocal fold engagement or tension that will rob you of function ultimately, but it will certainly rob you of resonance. And it's that resonance and brilliance that may be making that blended sound not sound right to you, because it is there where singer's formant and release of the soft tissue has such a dramatic impact on the quality and the perceived quality of our voices, how we hear it. When we lose those top partials, we sound like we're out of tune, when we can be right on the pitch, and yet it won't sound right. It will sound flat. And it is because the singer's formant is not resonating and telling our ear that the pitch is centered and in tune. I wish you the absolute best for a speedy, full, and complete recovery, but realize it may take some time. And that is it. I thought I had to press the button to see, but that is it for Questions from Comments 38. Thank you all for your questions. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. Please do subscribe. It really helps the channel. And if it's within your means, there are many ways you can support my channel. Those are in the description. Once again, they do include Patreon, where you can get MP3s, PDFs of these practices. Have a wonderful day. My name is Jeff. Take really good care of your voices. Enjoy singing. Hopefully we'll see you again. Bye.